was actually in the recruiter's office in 1963 when President Kennedy was shot. And so when that happened, it was obviously, a dramatic deal. The gunnery sergeant of Marines at the recruiting station came running in. I was in an interview room, and I was at that point in time too young to enlist, but I was checking the possibilities and all. And he ran in and said, "Our commander-in-chief's just been shot." And I thought, commander-in-chief, I don't know, I can't really relate to what that is. And then I soon figured out, wait a minute, it's the president. And then he came back in and said, he's deceased, he's dead. And so that was a traumatic moment. And so a couple of years later, by that time I was old enough, and I'd already gone through one year of college, and decided that I really wanted to be a Marine. And so I enlisted in the Marine Corps. I went through boot camp at MCRD San Diego, and interestingly, I had been told I was going to MCRD Parris Island, which was used to be the Mississippi River was a dividing line. If you lived on the right side of the Mississippi River, you went to Parris Island. You went to the left side, you went to MCRD San Diego. Well, in this particular case, they had a slot for me at Parris Island, and then everything changed just because I was expecting it to be a month or two. They called me 2 days later and said, "We've got a slot at MCRD San Diego. Go to MEPS and pack up and go." And that was fine with me. So I cannot say that I joined the Marine Corps for all the honorable reasons. I had a very good family life, but I wanted the adventure. So off to San Diego I went. I graduated from boot camp, went to ITR, Infantry Training Regiment, and then there was a large group of us, how many I don't know, but a large group of us were sent to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And at Camp Lejeune, we were only there less than 2 weeks, just long enough to start getting mail. And then they said, "Well, we've made what turned out to be probably $1 million mistake back then by sending all of you there, because you're going to Vietnam." So we went back to Camp Pendleton in California, and we went through infantry training, BITS, basic infantry training, and then to staging battalion. In staging battalion, we were beginning to learn the skills we would need in Vietnam. We had a Vietnam village set up. We learned things like booby traps and call for fires and all the general things a Marine needs to know. So after very shortly after that, I was sent to Vietnam via Okinawa, and we staged our sea bags in Okinawa, which just made no sense at all because we had our dress uniforms and all that in it, and all they did was sit in a warehouse and mildew. So all this money for uniforms was ruined by the time we came back, 13 months later to pick it up. I arrived in Vietnam. I was assigned to Gulf Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, and I knew from the beginning that it was a good unit. William L. Buchanan was my platoon commander, and Bill Buchanan was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He knew his stuff. He made sure that we understood what we were getting into and how to defend ourselves, how to advance on the enemy, all of that. So I joined them at Dong Ha, but just long enough to turn around because they were leaving Dong Ha and going back to An Hoa. And I'd never even really heard of Vietnam until, a couple of months before I got there. So all this was new to me, but it was exciting. went aboard the USS Barber County and as a PFC. So we just transported gear from there down to Chulai. From Chulai, we were on multiple supply routes, or supply runs from Chulai to Anwa. Anwa was a brand new airstrip, or it was, I don't know, it might have been an airstrip before, but it had never, received C-130s and things like that. They put MOMAT down, and we were assigned to riding bulldozers and whatever, and which was, again, exciting. It was a fun job. And at that point in time, never really been shot at, except in Da Nang when we were waiting, and that was just, I'd heard gunfire but not involved in any of it. So we went on battalion size operations. We went on company size operations and platoon firefights we got into. It was finally at Fulok 6, which is on the Songthaban River, that we were on a battalion size operation that was unnamed. And from there, we went to Gonoi Island. Gonoi Island. Gonoi Island, I did not even know the name of that was it until well after Vietnam, my tour there. I learned that from Lieutenant Buchanan, who incidentally became an FBI agent after he left, and was in a senior fellow at the San Francisco office of the FBI. So we were in a firefight, and he pulled us back from the incoming fire and called in an airstrike. And the airstrike was very successful. It was the first time I'd seen napalm dropped, and they were literally dropping it over our heads towards the enemy. And the one would assume that there's nothing left to do but pick up war souvenirs. Well, that was wrong, because they had a tunnel complex. They went down into the tunnels, waited it out, and came up. And as we were starting across the open area between the tree line and Gonoi Island, we started taking rounds. I took a round through the chest. It went right there, through my right lung and out my back. That was the worst of my three wounds in Vietnam. It was the only one that was life-threatening. When that occurred, to shorten the story, the Huey came in. It was the security bird for the CH-34, which was no longer operative, and they came in, picked me up, and as we were yanking and banking, getting altitude to get out of the area, I could see and hear pops, that ugly metal sound where bullets were coming through the fuselage. Well, the good news is that I was not hit again, but I was bleeding out, and the gunner was holding me in with his feet. I was laying on the floor. The gunner was working out on the gun with the gun as we were climbing, and so he was very, very busy. And as we finally got to altitude, I kept trying to move, trying to think I could find a more secure spot, but I lost so much blood at that point in time. I never went unconscious. I was conscious the whole time. The gunner was holding me in with his boots while the pilot was yanking and banking, and so I kind of thought, I might slide out of here and die anyway, but at that point, it just had no choice in it. So we gained altitude, finally got out of ground fire, above ground fire, and the gunner kicked me in the boot, and he said, "Hey, Marine," He said, "You're going to make it." I could tell by the look on his face he did not think I was going to make it. But fortunately, I did. So we got to the hospital, and the hospital was called Charley Med at that point in time. I was in intensive care for 23 days, which the reason it was in intensive care was not because I needed it that long, but because it was a clean environment. And they were afraid infection would set in, and I'd end up, dying anyway. The hospital was, I know, freaky at the time because everything was new, strange, and the medical staff were fantastic. They and it was so busy that they would rush me in, and then immediately go out to get the next bird coming in for the next wounded Marine soldier or whatever happened to be aboard. Um, I remember that I heard them talking, the doctors that did the surgery. I heard them talking that they didn't know whether I was going to make it, but they 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 gave me a local anesthetic because they didn't. I heard them say that they didn't want to give me a general anesthetic because they thought I might drown on my own blood. So they did the surgery, and they moved me immediately to not a rehab room, but somewhere where they keep a close eye on me before they put me in still in intensive care. But there was I believe, a Marine that was my partner in the side. That I never caught his name, and I wish that I had of, because I'd like to find out if he ever made it or not. But they had curtains between the racks, and they had kind of pushed the side of the curtain, and I could see his head. We're both facing the same way, and he was laying over on his side, and he had a big triangle cut out of his gourd, and I could actually see his brain, and they'd come squish water on it ever so often, and I thought, this is not good. It's not good to be in here. Well, after I was released from intensive care, I was put in rehab. Rehab was basically, even with IVs in you and all the rest of that, at 6 o'clock in the morning, 06, they would sound reveille, and they would have you get up, and you'd sweep and swab the decks, and which was, in retrospect, now that I know what was happening, it made a lot of sense. It gave you a sense of purpose instead of just laying there. But of course, I didn't look at it that way. So I was supposed to go aboard the USS Repose, the hospital ship, and they were talking about all the cool places. They were going to Thailand. They were going to different places in Indonesia and all that first, and then swing back around to the United States, and then offload and then come back. Well, there was a typhoon that came through, and because of that, we lay out there waiting under tarps, under poncho liners, and they waved the helicopters off, and they left. So my ticket out of there disappeared. After 3 days of rehab, I decided that, okay, I didn't join the Marine Corps to sweep and swab the Navy's decks, so I'm going to get out of here. Now, how am I going to do this? I had no clothes. I had nothing. No dog tags. They'd taken those off. I had a blue hospital gown on, and that was it. I looked around. I found a pair of boots that didn't belong to me. I found some trousers, the green satins that didn't belong to me, and I could not find a utility jacket. So I tucked my blue hospital gown into it, and basically, and I'm not a really smart guy, but I was smart enough to know that on the end of my rack was all my medical history and it had my name on it. And I thought, I should take that with me. If I'm going to break out of here, I should take it. So I did. And I got in. As I was leaving, I greeted the doctors. Of course, they would just nod and all that because they were so busy. Now people would have been hung for lack of accountability because all of a sudden they go in the hospital, rack's gone and the paperwork's gone. But I figured they needed the rack anyway, so I broke out of there. I went down to the airstrip at Da Nang. I talked to the one of the I think he was a sergeant who was dealing with the airfield in some way, and I said, he said, I said I'd like to go to Anwa, and he said, well, we don't have anything going until tomorrow, but we've got a mail run going then. I said, can I get on? He said, sure. And I said, by the way, can I sleep here tonight? And he said, yeah. He said, just pick a corner. And I said, well, I don't have any chow. Can I have some sea rats? He said, sure. The box is open. Go ahead. So I helped myself, and not one did he even ever question me as to who I was, where I was going. He knew where I was going, but there's no question at all about it. So I got on the chopper the next day, flew to Anwa, and saw the sergeant major. And the sergeant major didn't know me. I mean, I was a PFC, so he didn't. It was a battalion sergeant major, and he didn't know me from anybody else. So I kind of briefly explained, and I said, I need a uniform, and he scrounged up a uniform for me. And then I caught an Amtrak going back a day or so later, going to Nong Son, the coal mines, where my unit was at that point in time. So I got to Nong Son. I went up. It was basically 3 levels of security to the top, and we were on the second belt around the mountain. And I asked around. I found out where Lieutenant Buchanan was, and he had they had a small gauge railroad through there, and I think that it hadn't been used in a while, and I think they took the railroad ties and kind of built in revetments into the mountain, and then covered them with tarps or whatever they could find. So I beat on his hatch and I said, sir, PFC Bates reporting for duty, sir. There's a long pause. He said, Bates, get in here. So I entered, and he looked completely stunned. But things were happening so fast back then that he had written in his platoon commander's notebook that night about my wound and all that, which I will tell you about later. But he didn't know whether I was alive or dead, and then I show up on his front porch, so to say, and I said, "Well, sir, do you need trigger pullers?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And so he said, "Can you hump?" And I said, "Well, I'm still spitting up a lot of blood, but I can't really right now make long humps, but I'm sure I'm going to get better. So yes, I will eventually." And so he put me on perimeter duty, and then I don't really recall the time, but a week or so later, we were relieved on Nong Son, went back to Anwa, and then they put us out on airfield security, which incidentally just about everybody called dysentery. And so dysentery is nasty. So the corpsman would come by and throw kaopectate and all that to us, and meals, and kept us fed. So we were kind of permanent airfield security for a few weeks till we got over the amoebic dysentery. So that was my first wound, and we that was on 17 December 1966. And then we had a lot of action between then and the 4th of July. The 4th of July of 1967 was significant because my platoon, was back at Anwa. We had just come back in from doing some other operation. And we were on your platoon. When you come back, you're assigned Sparrowhawk. Sparrowhawk is a an emergency. If somebody gets hit, you go get them, and it's generally light duty until it isn't. And we were settling down. I guess we got there first, second or so of July, and we were getting kind of comfortable. And then on the late in the evening on the 4th of July, you could hear all the way to Nong San, and I need to look at the map to figure the distance, but you could actually hear the gunfight going on in Nong San. They sounded the alarm for Sparrowhawk. We got on Amtrak's, and at night went well, again, I don't recall the distance, but then we had to cross the Song Thuban River, come up, and then the Amtrak let us off, and then we had to climb the hill. And when we got to the top of the hill, things were still heavily engaged, and when I really didn't think I was going to make it through that night, but somehow I was completely unscathed. But the next night was very tense. But on the 6th of July, we were put on a listening post. And on that listening post, that's where they put you out in teams as an advance guard to let the main body know that the enemy's coming up. It was on the 6th of July, so the sun was up until probably 8 or 8:30 or so. And then it had gone down, and at about 10 o'clock at night, I had a fire team. I was a corporal then. I'd been promoted. And incidentally, speaking of that and backtracking, I received the rank of Lance Corporal when I came back from the hospital. I never bought a Lance Corporal rank because well, for starters, there really wasn't a place to get them, and unless somebody, got hit or something, you could take them from them. But I never bought them and then I found out I'd already been promoted to corporal. So, and that just doesn't happen today. But back then, the Marine Corps was building so big, so fast. That's the way it was. So, Corporal Bates had his fire team with him out on the LP, and the listening post. The main part of our unit was on the top of Nong San Hill. We were probably 600-700 meters down a hill. It was a sloping hill and really sharp on the backside, but we were on the front slope. And as we were down there, we did not have squad radios or anything. So what we did, we'd tie comm wire around our wrist, and it was 50% on duty all times and 50% off. But I was the senior guy. I had one Lance Corporal and 2 PFCs and myself. I chose to sleep first because that's less intense. Your chances of getting hit are less on the very front end because it's getting dark. They're banking on you being asleep when they come up, and so we had discussed it and all that. And I was in the middle of the fire team. We had concealment, but we didn't have any cover. We had some bushes in front, but we didn't have any rocks or anything to get behind. So we felt kind of naked out there. Well, it was about maybe 10 o'clock at night. It just really gotten really dark, and I felt a tug this way, and I felt a tug that way, and then back and forth. And the pre-designated orders were, don't fire unless you absolutely have to, or until somebody else fires. So, and they were all seasoned combat vets by that time, so they didn't. They woke me up, which was, and we were probably just about a double's arm length apart to begin with. With uh, the when they pulled me like that, I got to looking really, really hard, and about maybe 8 meters or so in front of me, there was it turned out to be an NVA. I didn't know at the point in time whether it was a VC or an NVA, but the NVA had infiltrated the place when they had hit on the 4th of July, and the rest of them had kind of regrouped and were coming up. But I would see this NVA, he'd take a couple of steps and stop and wait and listen. And when he would do that, I would, I kept thinking, you can't really believe your eyes at that point in time. So I had my M16 then, and I had grenades, I had my K-bar, I had all the tools, but I kept thinking, all these things went through my brain housing group as to, okay, what am I going to do now? I've got to make the decision, and I've got to make it real soon. He took another couple of steps, so he was about 5 meters or so in front of me. It briefly went through my brain that I could take him out with a K-bar, but that stuff is in the movies, and I know he would make a lot of noise. He wouldn't be. It would not be quick. It'd be ugly, and it'd also attract all the attention from all of those that may be behind him. So that I decided wasn't the right idea. Secondly, I thought about taking him out with my weapon, but if I did so, that'd cause a muzzle flash, and again, they would know where we were. Finally, I decided, and all this happened within 5 or 10 seconds of going through your brain. I finally decided to pull a pin on M26 grenade, and I just pushed it out in front. Well, when it did go off, I still don't ever remember hearing the sound of it, but I remember the bright white flash, and it hit right behind his heels, and it blew up right behind his heels, and it's kind of like the expression, somebody falling through their ass. It took out his ass, and that was probably one of the more significant things that I still remember and still have a problem with to some degree, because it did not kill him outright. He lived until just about daylight, and as he was laying there, he was moaning, and he was probably calling out for his mom or his dad or something. I didn't know enough Vietnamese to know what he was saying, but it was not good. Then as the moon came up, and I was looking around, I could tell that 2 of my three other Marines were wounded. They just had a glistening black look on their sides, and it turned out to where that the one thing, we did not want to go back into our own lines, because there's nothing worse than coming back into Marines that no matter how many times they've been told, do not fire, you could just expect them to fire on you. So we had to wait it out until daylight. As the sun finally began to come up, I was calling vocally because we had no radios. Listening posts coming in. Making sure I got a reply from them before we got up to move. And they brought the guy's body up there, and that's the reason I know he had his ass blown out. And I had shrapnel up my left side of my leg, and the other two had wounds, but they were not. Nobody was life threatening, so it was okay. But the the psychological scars from hearing that guy, laying there moaning all night, was well, it was traumatic. I mean, I could still remember that as much as anything else in Vietnam, much more so than when I even got hit. The Then on the 15th of August of 1967, we were on a battalion. I believe it was a battalion operation, but I don't know where we were. I went back to Vietnam about 15 months ago, and I saw Nong Son where I was wounded. I saw Go Noi Island where I was wounded, but I had no clue as to where I was. I mean, people have asked me, "Have you been to Laos and Cambodia?" And I don't know. I just don't know. We had maps, but they were very antiquated. We just really don't know. So I had no way of finding where I might even close to where I was wounded the last time. But the as we were going through it was I can tell you it was elephant grass, and it was probably 7 or 8 foot tall. And we started receiving incoming rounds, but they were very, it was one over here and one over there. They knew we were coming, but they didn't know where we were, so they're just shooting through the grass, just trying to find us. There was a Mr. Bai and a Mr. Dow who were Chu Hois. Chu Hois were ones who were with the North Vietnamese, and they came over to our side voluntarily, and they were very, very aggressive towards the NVA. I didn't really have a choice, but they were right there with me. And as we were trying to get to the elephant grass, we did, and broke out into a place and had a kind of a pig trail on it. And as I was running behind them and bringing my squad with me, they all of a sudden the ground went like that, and I was standing in a Punji stake trap, and one of them went through. That was before they had steel plates in the boots, which they put in because of that. But this was early on in the war, so I had a Punji stake sticking out my the top of my foot, and that's the first real Punji stake trap I'd actually seen. I'd seen them in staging battalion in the Vietnam Vills where they were showing us mock-ups of them, but that's I got to see one up close and personal, and I had it sticking through my foot, and people ask me frequently, "Well, okay, did you push it back through the long way or pull it out this way?" I have no clue. My memory is just completely blank on that. It was painful. It was far more painful from the grenade shrapnel than from the gunshot wound, mostly because it stayed with me for seemed like forever. Because as soon as it started to heal, I would walking, it'd break it open and it'd get reinfected again. But that's the story of my 3 wounds.
That's quite the story. Well, I'm curious. So did you get evacuated back to the United States with the Punji stick then? Did that take you out of country?
Yes, but it was 9 days later than I was supposed to because of the three heart rule. If you're wounded three times, you're supposed to be pulled out of combat into a secure area. They do the paperwork and then send you back to the states. Well, this happened close enough to the end of my tour that by the time they finished the paperwork, it was 9 days beyond the 13 months that I came back home, which was okay. I mean, I wasn't in any more combat, so I just kind of waiting it out.
And what was your return home like? I know you said it was kind of early in the war. Was there any kind of anti-war stuff going on when you got back that you?
Yeah, you know, you hear about Marines or anybody coming back from Vietnam being spit on. I was spit on in San Francisco International Airport, and it really surprised me because there was a girl. Oh, when I went to Vietnam, girls were wearing skirts down to their at least to their knees or below their knees. When I came back, they were wearing them, 3 inches below their crotch, and the there was a girl that came back, and I was in uniform, um, and she came up to me and she said, "Did you just come from Vietnam?" And I thought she was trying to put the make on me, so I was excited. I thought, yeah. I said, yes, I did, and she spit on me, and when she did, I I thought, what do I do? Do I just wipe it off? Do I curse her? Do I hit her? And none of those, nothing fit. So I just kind of stood there, and then she walked off, and I just stood there for a minute or so trying to comprehend what was happening and why it was happening. And I knew that things had changed, but I didn't know they had changed that much.
I know that affected how some guys reflect on their service. Did that, the reception and the kind of negative feelings towards Vietnam veterans, did that affect how you felt about your service, or? Um,
The the I went because I was very patriotic, and because my father was, and he insisted that all of his male kids, which I was the only male of our family, uh, he insisted that we serve in some capacity. And I found out that well, I actually had noob by that point in time. I did not have 20/20 uncorrected vision, so I could not fly. Had I had 20/20 uncorrected vision, I would have probably come into the Marine Corps on an aviation contract. But since that didn't happen, the ground was fine with me. And so because of the way that I thought. It seemed like all my prior college buddies were all trying to do everything they could to keep from going to Vietnam, and I thought, oh wait, the country has called me. They've asked me to, and I don't know who these Vietnamese people are, but I understand they're communists. We don't want communism, so I will go. I will serve, and I again, it was a great adventure, and so when I got back processing it, I immediately, the very first opportunity I had because of the semesters, I went back to school. And when I did, I hooked up with several other guys that had come back, mostly Marines from Vietnam, and we started a Marine Corps League, and we were tight. We did things together, and it's just that I thought the idea of running away to Canada is running away to Canada. You're in my opinion, I thought it was cowardice, and I wanted to serve, so I did, and I did have a great adventure.